Hello, my name is Derric Haynie, and I'm author of Quantum Poker. I also go by Action DJ or Six Peppers on the forums and online. I want to give you a breakdown of my book and what to expect from it and whether or not it's for you. So definitely this book is going to be for the professional player. You should buy this book if you're an experienced poker player and you understand a lot of the basic concepts, but you are still having problems going further and fully wrapping your head around what is poker. It's definitely for the long-term winning player, and it can benefit you even if you're an experienced pro. It's going to help to be a math or analytical type person. The book is very math oriented, but also just understanding a lot of math is really important to being a great poker player. If you don't know a lot about math, calculus or algebra, then you should probably take a few math classes regardless of whether or not you get this book, because it will help your poker game, absolutely. And then you need to be hardworking, because this book doesn't solve any of the problems for you. It gives you the framework on how to solve your own problems in poker. So why did I name it Quantum Poker? I named it Quantum Poker because of the uncertainty, especially looking at like opponents' hole cards or hand ranges, and how that uncertainty relates to quantum superposition, which is essentially where a particle can be anywhere, just like a hand can be any kind of hand in the range of hands. And there's a thought experiment, that's Schrodinger's cat thought experiment, where a cat is placed in a box and it's either alive or dead inside the box, and the only way to know for certain is to observe it. So it's in a state of superposition until it has been observed, and that's kind of what opponents' hole cards are, and that's why I named it Quantum Poker, to relate to that. With each piece of hidden information that's out there, it's kind of in this quantum flux kind of state. So some of the more common concepts that you're going to see in this book that you've probably seen before, I introduce or reintroduce the pot equity and fold equity equations and talk in depth about how important they are to have memorized and be able to intuitively use them at the table. I talk and hammer in the concept of a hand range and how important it is to think about your opponent's hole cards in terms of ranges and not just hands and put you ons and stuff like that. I break down equity distribution by street and why it's important to remember that if you're going just to one future street, you shouldn't be calculating your equity towards showdown, all the way to showdown. I talk about the relationship between bet sizing and folding frequency or folding equity, and how changing your bet sizing can increase the value of a play dependent on what you perceive your opponent to fold, call, raise, etc. It's important to understand variance, and I go into that a little bit, giving some examples of how bad you can run for a long period of time and how important it is to be a better player, because the better you are, essentially the faster you'll win, even though that sounds silly, like the less variance you'll occur and the less stressful your life will be. And I give some insight into how to multi-table successfully. So all that stuff you probably heard before, and what I think of the really big selling point to this book for me and what I talk about, I've lumped into what I call the unified theory of poker. I don't really see a lot of people talking about this out there, at least not at as full circle as I have. And what the unified theory of poker is about is it's about understanding the future decisions that come after this decision and understanding how those decisions are going to affect this one, and then looking even further and using enumeration and combinatorics to dissect opponents' hand ranges going forward and future board cards, and basically make a determination based on that to the expected value or average enumerated value of each option you have right now. So it is essentially the idea is to look further out than I think a lot of people are. People are just making bets and raises based on like what their hole cards are and stuff, but it's important to really understand all the possible future decisions in order to maximize your value the best. And then I give a couple of examples using mean value rectangles, which is something it's basically equity distribution by street, and how to factor in uncertainty when making such complex decisions. So you might be asking yourself, what is enumeration? So I'll just break it down for you right now. That enumeration is just counting or math, summing up things. And when you're counting things in enumeration, they're called permutations. So if you look here, There are 3 different colored balls. If you were to arrange them every different possible way, this is what you have. You have 6 different permutations of how to arrange the balls. And that's not that much unlike poker, and how hole cards, the next possible future street, can be one of many different possible future streets. And all we're doing in poker is finding our desired results and dividing by all the possible results, and that's what equity is. That's how you get to the end of a hand. That's you find all the hands that you have the winning one and divide by all the total hands, and that's how much equity you have. So you use enumeration and combinatorics to help estimate opponents' hand ranges and the frequency of which actions they'll be most likely to do, basically based on your experience with them and your experience overall as a poker player. So the important part of enumeration in poker is evaluating each decision node, understanding the combinations of hands that opponent can have and how often they'll make each action, and that translates into how much equity you have, which can help you determine your average enumerated value of each of your decisions. To give you an idea of how complex this is just some of the possible outcomes of a hand. These are some of the possible permutations in poker just based on a flop check. After you check, your opponent can bet or check. You could check raise, you could check fold, you could check call. And so if you're looking at the value of a check or all the possible future streets, you'd have to calculate everything out here. And while that is impractical, if you were able to do it perfectly, you would have a finite answer as far as what the best the value of a check would be, and probably from there what your best decision would be. So while it can be extremely complex, it's very important to bring enumeration into your intuition in order to just become a better intuitive player, because obviously doing complex math and calculations at the table is impossible. So you make a decision based on your current intuition, and then you remember the hand and you check the math away from the table, and then you use your findings to reinforce your intuition so that you make a better decision the next time. Some of the things that help you find an answer faster and make a better estimation is to think of common outcomes and group future streets and hand ranges together, like flush completing cards, board pairing cards, and hand ranges like flush draw, straight draws, 2-pair sets, and stuff like that. Kind of grouping things together and then estimating your value, how frequently they have it, how they'll play that hand. It really helps. And from there, you just need to have more experience in poker and review more away from the table, and you will become a better player. And so that's really what I hammer in this book, and I help you get there. I help you solve your own math problems. When people post hand histories on forums, I really find that there's a lot of poor advice out there where people are just like, oh yeah, check and raise, and it's like, okay, but what is the purpose? Like, how much value are you really getting? How can you be certain that this is the right thing? Getting a lot of people's opinions can be handy, but the value of each opinion isn't really necessarily that high a lot of the times, and just spending a lot of time working on a couple of problems that you continually run into in poker can really be beneficial and help plug leaks in your game. Other things I go over in the book besides the unified theory of poker, ego, hindsight, blind versus blind play, and I talk a bit about the economics behind poker, and I give some example hands. So the main takeaways from this book, of course, the first one is opponents have ranges, not cards. Hopefully this is not completely new to you, but it is very important, so I really do talk about it a lot. Your cards aren't static, because with each piece of information, you change your equity. So while you have 2 whole cards that it's the same starting hand, sure, but since your equity is changing from decision to decision and street to street, you need to be estimating your equity and not concerned with what your hand is. The main goal of the book is to bring enumeration into an intuitive understanding through experience and practice, and understanding that each future decision and possible outcome needs to be calculated into your current decision, and you can't just use really simple and basic math when looking to have future decisions, when you're not all in. It's going to be a complex problem, and the better you understand how to play the future streets and what is likely to happen on them, the better you'll understand this decision. So kind of a backwards, a reverse engineering approach, looking at starting at the river and getting ready to play certain river situations from a pre-flop standing is very important. I hope this book This video has been helpful to you in understanding what the book has to offer. And if you have any questions or comments that I might not have answered here, you can definitely send me an email. Feel free to email me at derric.haynie@gmail.com. And if you want updates about the book, future videos and books coming out, you can follow me on Twitter at 6peppers. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys at the tables.